I'm Yingying Li, founder of Yingfluence. We're a consulting platform that applies diversity thinking to train and transform professionals to connect and lead their brands cross-culturally. And I have other two projects that I want to introduce with my two missions. The first one is Skive. So in today's artificial intelligence world, too much attention, money, and investment and spending in talking about, and people start to fearfully ask, when will I be replaced by AI, right? But have you ever really dig deeper in asking, do we invest enough in understanding human intelligence or human awareness? So Skive actually is a Silicon Valley-based startup that we are building our specialized, ultra-secure AI chip as considered to be the heart of a robot as opposed to the brain. And most recently, I'm very excited to develop a podcast show called How China Works with my partner, Brandon Davis. We already finished the first 40 episode of shows, crash course, 15 minutes for episode, in showcasing what are the cultural nuances you could pay attention to when you get into China. And now we're on the season 2, inviting leading cross-cultural thinkers to be able to share their understanding about the relationship between China and the world. Along the years, I was traveling and working in different countries, India, Turkey, Brazil, and the States, of course, China. I'm a Chinese. So whenever you go, I feel like people across different cultures are facing 3 challenges in common. The first one, 90% of the executives from 68 countries identified the cross-cultural effectiveness is their first top priority for the management challenge. 70% of international ventures fail because of cultural differences. This is according to International Labor Union. So we are here only a few Chinese people here, but a lot of startup founders want to build a successful startup here in China. We should consider about it. Second challenge, brands struggling in winning different markets, especially now. We all heard a lot about Chinese brands having difficulty in going global. It might be changing right now, but still, there's a long way to go. And third, probably this is most related to every one of us in today's room. Generally, you're building a startup team here in China, you definitely will face this talent management and multicultural workforce. And even in adapting into this faster changing China pace. What's really going on with China, even for Chinese people, are hard to understand. Let alone people are not from this country. I have a lot of story to share, but within 8 minutes, it's hard. But I encourage you to really follow us on How China Works to be able to tell about that. Not a long time ago, IQ and EQ are essential for building a successful business and leadership in a single market. But now you know, when you are starting building products cross-culturally, working with people with very much different markets, different countries, cultural intelligence is a must. How many of you guys heard about cultural intelligence before you come to this place, or even maybe before you know this about this event? Raise your hand, please. Cool. Okay. Cultural intelligence, in one word, is the capability to function effectively across different cultures. One of the leading thinkers here that we are going to leave it academic tonight. Maybe I won't leave some model for you tonight to think about it. One of the thought leader is David Livermore, who have 4 pillars about cultural intelligence. So today we're going to illustrate a little bit by helping us to understand better how we can apply cultural intelligence here in China. So it's very important when you're here, what is your motivation in learning about Chinese culture? So this answer I can already give you here is to build a successful startup, is to win in the Chinese market, So that's your motivation. But do you understand, or are you already be able to articulate what are the cultural differences between your home country and Chinese culture here? So literally, this is a very hard picture for me to find actually online, because with what's going on with China and then US. I was keep asking about what's really going on with China and US. So when anyone coming from the US, raise your hand please. Okay, when you're dealing with Chinese here in China or outside of China, are you able to be clear in mind when you're actually having a meeting with your partner, counterpart? So, generally speaking, Chinese culture are collectivist, hierarchical, and indirect. Well, probably you will say, no, that's not the case. A lot of my Chinese team members are already westernized. But if you really consider China as a huge, complex country, there are over 60 different tiers of cities actually here. Sooner or later, you have to deal with typical Chinese when it comes to the decision-making, negotiation, striking a deals. So we really have to pay attention to that. As opposed to maybe you come from the West. So their culture might be individualistic, egalitarian, and very much direct. So why it's important to keep that in mind? Because when you're going to the meeting, before meeting this guy and this person, if you keep that bullet in your mind, you will have more empathy. You will actually put your temper aside first in thinking about, okay, I should actually understand people are from different cultures. They got raised up in different countries. So the third one is the strategy. When you're already very clear with the drive, and when you're very clearly with the knowledge, you should turn that into a strategy to make your startup very successful. So I encourage you to start thinking about your way. How are you able to use awareness and use that intelligence to be able to deal with those cross-cultural interactions? Take Yingfluence as example. So literally, these are the training that I held outside of China in different countries. And I found it's not enough. Along the last couple of years, I was mostly doing training, cross-cultural communication training, and all kinds of cultural activities in different countries. I found it's not enough for me to just help people outside of China to go to China to be able to be successful. Because I find right now the world actually have all kinds of different perception about China. It's not enough for me just go there to tell, hey, this is China. I feel it's more important for me to come back, to connect with the local stakeholders, even government, non-profit organizations, to help them to know, hey, this is something we need to pay attention to, cultural intelligence. With that being said, I was able to generate some ideas and projects to be able to help organizations to little by little. This is like if you have noticed that how to build a bridge. It's not to build a bridge from one side all the way to another side. How to build a bridge? It's about building a bridge from two sides to the central. So both sides has to really understand the efforts, the commitment need to be made. Both sides have even to compromise a little bit because all cultures have those strengths and weakness. We heard so many people complain about China, because I also work with media. So on my Chinese social media and on my overseas social media platforms, I saw people actually are more and more having complex questions about each other instead of knowing each other more. There's a lot of things need to be done, but how can we do it? So I also create training programs for Chinese to be able to understand how they interact better with locals, but I cannot do that by myself. Literally, this is the second strategy that I use. After training among different cultural communities, I find that it's important to establish a global cultural broker system. When I say so, because I find it's critically important to connect with people with unbiased and those East-West thinkers, those people who have empathy, those people who have the cultural intelligence to not just educate but inspire people from different cultures, and they come here can share their views. So we collaborate with a lot of influencers, this I call influencers, they are cross-cultural leaders. They are cross-cultural pioneers. So if you follow our podcast, How China Works Season 2, we're starting to connect and interview people, like from one of the professors, Carrie Brown, who here actually know Professor Carrie Brown, who is a professor in London College, actually, who has written 14 books about China. And we also try to connect people who work very intensively in China, like Founder Space. So I also interview, but most importantly, I feel it's necessary to make the world hear Chinese millennials' voice, because this generation, like our generation, are no different with the West when it comes to life pursuit and values, embracing diversities. So with that being said, this platform, we generate a lot of content. Not only content, these are research-based report and data and comments we can share with both sides when time is right. And we want to be able to bridge these particular gaps, because where there is a gap, there is a bridge. It's essential to do this right now with what's really going on with the world geopolitically, economically. And I think it's critical. We know, I also interviewed them on my podcast. I want people to hear about them. So that's the action. The last part is about the CQ action. With all these pillars adding up, we should take actions. But when it comes to taking actions, there's some examples I could ask. How can I adapt to my own culture? How can I can adapt into this Chinese culture? Sometimes I'm not very comfortable with. So we all already know using WeChat, but how much do we understand the Guanxi culture behind it? Do you know Chinese people from different layers of the cities in China use it quite differently? This is not just about social, but also about building a successful business. And we all know the Chinese are embracing the 996 Starbucks cultures. 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., 6 days a week, sometimes more. What does it really mean? Why Chinese people? Why the whole China entrepreneurial culture become like this? So we trace back to history and culture to understand the nuances and mindset behind the Chinese people, which are the Chinese consumers. And we also need to know what are the Chinese millennial consumers right now that you are facing, you're engaging, connecting with. What kind of pressure they have from their family, from the tradition, from even Confucianism. So the whole thing, so we encourage you to think about it. So my last question for all of you Anyone heard about this world-famous speech or historical words from John Kennedy? Ask not what your country do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. This is famous for encouraging American young people to do more public good. So I will go ahead to say to my Chinese millennial peers, entrepreneurs, founders, ask not what China can do for you at this moment. Ask what change you can bring to China, make it better, by applying your cultural intelligence, by being a bridge. So I will go even one more layer for expats in China, for founders who actually love engaging with Chinese market, Chinese people. Sometimes maybe, it's okay to criticize, it's good to do something, but let's really make it real. Ask what China can do for you. Ask how you can, by applying your cultural intelligence, to help China solve its problem, change, to be better, to be more globalized, to be better connected. And that's your mission. That should be all our mission. For all of us here in this room, be a cross-cultural bridge. Because if you do this, China will be grateful. And your team, everyone will be grateful. And that's if China could be more blended with the West, with the world, be embraced, trusted, and China could actually unleash a much bigger potential. We're all driving the humanity forward. Thank you so much.